Now the next story I want to get into is Nick Nemeth, and I think what I'll do is I'll actually do a present screen here. That way you guys can just read this along with me. So if you don't have access to the Observer, sometimes there's ways to get it. But okay, so in a match that was made at an angle on night one, so we're talking about New Japan Pro Wrestling. So night one of the latest tour of New Japan Pro Wrestling, Nick Nemeth defeated Hiroshi Tanahashi to retain the global title. And then the next night, they made the match in an angle on night one. Then the next night, David Finlay beat Nemeth to win the global title in a very well-worked match. The fact that this wasn't advertised nor made until the last minute will lead to speculation that Nemeth, being the AAA Mega Champion, could have played a factor in this, as New Japan would never want their number 2 champion also being champion in AAA, the rival to CMLL, which New Japan has worked with for years. And then shortly after I think that was the next day. I think it was the next day. Nemeth then took to Twitter and said that he was essentially thanking New Japan, which led me to believe that he might be done in Japan. He might be. I don't know. I don't know if he is booked for Resurgence or not. But him taking to Twitter and saying thank you, New Japan, very much seemed like it was spelling the end of Nick Nemeth in Japan. And if so, that's a shame. That sucks. But look, New Japan wants nothing to do with AAA. And I think at one point FTR held the IWGP titles and the AAA tag team titles at the same time. But, AEW stars can get away with more just because the New Japan was really wanting that AEW relationship to work. And of course, they got the forbidden door. So there's like monetary reasons as to why they would overlook certain things. But with Nick Nemeth, he's really good, but he's just Nick Nemeth. It's not like a big deal, right? And so they put the title on him thinking that he would bring over new fans, bring it 20 years on WWE TV, but that just didn't happen. In fact, I think New Japan fans kind of have been resenting it because, they're bringing in, they brought in Nemeth and they brought in Riddle and they're bringing in Ali. Nemeth and Riddle won titles right away, but they're not full-time guys. So they're coming in, working shows here and there, holding titles that they feel like their full-time guys should be wearing, should be holding. And they took some heat for it, which is why, they have gotten the titles off of them rather quickly, Like Riddle lost the TV title like very quickly. He lost it to Zack Sabre Jr. here recently, and then Zack Sabre obviously just lost it to Jeff Cobb. So they're kind of revolting there. And Nick Nemeth being the AAA Mega champion seems like it would be good for TNA, but I don't know. Like they have a relationship, and they're sending some TNA stars to the latest version of Triple Mania. How many Triple Manias does AAA have? I thought that was like their annual event, but I think this might be like their third event so far this year that says Triple Mania on it. But he defeated Alberto Del Rio, asshole Del Rio, for that title in a crappy match. And maybe New Japan just didn't want anything to do with any of it. So, but it makes sense that New Japan was like, okay, yeah, we don't want you holding the AAA title, so we're going to take this title off of you. And then he just seems like he's done. But that could be good news for TNA, because the reason why he missed the Under Siege tapings, like he missed Under Siege and the tapings, is because he was in Japan. He had that prior booking in Japan. Because he's still not a TNA contracted talent. He's a per date guy. But if anybody thinks that he's going to be leaving anytime soon, TNA is doing him the solid of booking his shitty brother. The Nemeth brothers have invaded Impact. His brother Ryan has now, not only was he at Rebellion and was a part of an angle, he was also at Under Siege, the Under Siege tapings, and he got involved with an angle with Matt Hardy this week on Impact. And next week on Impact, he's actually wrestling in a match. He's doing the one thing that he should never do, which is wrestle. Because he is not a good wrestler. he's getting opportunities because of who his brother is, and I get it. He was with AEW for years because I think he was just like carrying the Young Bucks bags or something like that. But they kept him around as the Hollywood hunk, and he was doing jobs on Dark and things like that. But he's just a geek, probably a really nice guy. But it's very clear that TNA covets the relationship with Nick Nemeth so much that they're bringing in his brother, and they're actually like kind of pushing the guy a little bit. I think he's got a tag match where his partner's Broken Matt, and they're taking on the System coming up in Kentucky. I think they just announced that. So, yeah, the Nemeth brothers have invaded. It would not shock me if the Nemeth brothers went into Slammiversary as the number one contenders to the TNA tag team titles. Would not shock me at all. My original prediction, because I just don't think Broken Matt's going to win the title against all odds. But there's been a lot of talk and a lot of smoke about Jeff Hardy possibly leaving AEW and coming into TNA. And I think that would be good for Jeff. I think AEW just needs to get out of that relationship. I just don't think Jeff has any value to them. And honestly, he's probably more of a liability. And he's a liability in TNA too, don't get me wrong, but I think he adds value. And I get it. Like, yeah, he's a drunk, not a malcontent, but he's a drunk and he's, always in some type of trouble. You can't trust the guy. But with TNA, it's just like, it's fine. But with AEW, he's actually like a real liability there. So, but I thought the Hardy brothers would be facing the System at Slammiversary, but who knows what's going to happen with Jeff. I think that's an unpredictable thing. If AEW lets him go, it would not shock me for WWE to just bring him right back. So now I'm done with that prediction, although I still think it's a possibility. I think right now we're going to head into Slammiversary with the Nemeth brothers challenging for the tag titles against the System. I think it's a real possibility. And Swink in the chat says Nemeth brothers about to take those World Tag Team title belts from the System. I don't know if they take the belts, because I think they're trying to do their Bloodline and Cody story in TNA. You notice how the System is like super strong. Like Under Siege, I would have absolutely had Matt Hardy get the pin over one of the members of the System, especially if we're going to give him a title shot. I would not have him lose in his first match, and of course it's TNA, so he lost in his first match. But he didn't take the pin, so he's they're keeping him strong in their lore, right? In their universe, he is still strong. Makes no sense to me, but that's just TNA booking, right? Oh, well, he wasn't the one that got pinned. Well, he's a bad teammate then. But regardless, so they're still going with Moose and Matt Hardy against all odds. I would have had Matt Hardy get the pin, not over Moose, because they're keeping Moose extra strong, but he could have pinned Eddie or Myers, and they would have been fine. But they're keeping them strong, right? I don't think any of them have lost since the group has been formed, right? So they're like, as far as a group of heels, they're like the strongest group of heels. They're not drawing anything. Interest in the company is way down. They had 450 fans at Under Siege, so it's not like act like this whole thing is working. But let's just say, for the story, for the sake of storylines, they're the strongest like faction, and they're the strongest heels that they've had in a long time. They're just not losing, and they're not exactly chicken shit heels either. They're kind of like they're taking on all comers as heels. So they're strong heels. So I think they're going to keep them strong, and I think kind of like they did with the Bloodline, and I think at Hard to Kill 2025, Nemeth is going to defeat Moose, a non-contracted guy who would go back to WWE in a heartbeat, or he would take an AEW deal in a heartbeat.